episode of Cosmic Conversations. I'm your hostess, Marla Martenson, and I'm with Paul Selig again. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Marla.
I'm so excited, you guys. All right, so I interviewed Paul, I think it's been a year and a half or 2 years or something ago, so I'm going to put the link below to that so you can get the whole story. But Paul is a psychic medium, award-winning author of channeled texts. Well, the guides are award-winning authors, I guess, and they're published by Tarcher Penguin. And you guys, look, I've got all the books here. Look at the, isn't this unreal? How many books have come through? And now the latest, the Book of Truth, is here, and I was just even reading it before we got on Skype because it's so, all this, I have notes, so you'll be seeing me look around. But so I love, there's a quote from Deepak Chopra about this book, and he says, authentic, straightforward truth straight from the source field. And then I love the one ABC News Nightline, one of the most sought after psychics you've never heard of. So but you're getting more and more mainstream. This is amazing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the work has been around long enough that whatever the sort of groundswell for it is has spread a bit more to the mainstream. And I think that comes from being around a little while. I mean, the books came very fast, only since 2010.
Yeah.
2009 was the first book was channeled, so it has been quick. But yeah, we're getting out there.
Yeah, the first one, wasn't that the first I'm the word, right? The first one, which is awesome. And I do mark them up because there's places that I just love to. And I love the affirmations that the guides put in italics for us to say. And so just to go back briefly, I'm not going to make you say your whole story again because you guys, the link is below. But around 30, you started doing energy work, and you were volunteering at a place at the height of the AIDS crisis for people with life-challenging illnesses, and then things kind of opened up for you, right?
I studied a form of energy healing to get a context for the psychic opening that I was beginning to have. Mm-hmm. And then I found that when I had my hands on people and I was working with them, I could hear things. And as what I was hearing kept getting confirmed, I began trusting the information a bit more. Yeah. And then I started to open up as a physical empath, and then the channeling began. So it was really a process. I didn't start delivering lectures and texts the way that I do now until about 2008, although I'd been working for some time.
And you were a professor at
Clay,
right?
For 25 years, I ran a graduate program at Goddard College for about 18 or 20, and I'm on the board of trustees there now. It's funny, but you know, I had an academic life, so I was somewhat quiet about my metaphysical pursuits, especially around NYU. And, you know, it was a surprise to people once they found out that this is what I was really doing with all of my free time.
Right, and now you've left teaching.
I have, yeah.
How long has it been now?
2 years,
Oh,
just,
2 years.
I think, 2 years. And that's been interesting. And, you know, a big adjustment, because I loved it, really. I mean, it was a big part of my life. But I'm on the road so much now, and what I found myself doing was sort of flying back from the red-eye from the West Coast to make a 9 a.m. faculty meeting. And I'm not a kid anymore, so it stopped being a good idea.
It's exhausting, but now you're like a rock star, you know, traveling the world. You are, you know, and people are flocking to see you. I mean, could you ever have imagined this for yourself?
No, not really. I mean, this wasn't planned. You know, I didn't know that I was going to channel a book until 2 days before the book started, and I was told by my guides, we have a book to write. Yeah. And it really hasn't stopped since then. Once I became willing to record the sessions and transcribe them, they've really just been very direct with how they want to move the work forward.
And it's a very kind of elegant, sophisticated channeling, because I follow a lot of channelers, and there's, you know, Bashar, how he speaks, and then Abraham Hicks, and your guides are very, you know, you've got to pay attention reading it. I think it's very, don't you think it's a little sophisticated? And then even when you bring them through, you kind of even have a British accent now sometimes.
Well, I don't read other channels' work, so I've not read the Hicks's work, and I've not read Bashar's work, and I read half a Seth book when I was in graduate school. That was sort of when my exposure stopped. I mean, the guys that I work with are teachers. I'm impressed by how well they speak. I mean, they'll sit me down and they'll speak for 40 minutes is usually an average lecture that they'll give. That they build and have themes and images that they return to. And, I'm not able to sit down and just do that. So I'm very happy that they are. And the level of sophistication, I think, they've been building a teaching from the very beginning. And they've been very consistent in all of the text and sort of moving us towards this place of realization that they're hoping to bring us to. So I'm pleased that you think that, but I can't compare it to much else.
Yeah, it really is. It's great. And then now I just curious, for the viewers, you came from basically an agnostic or atheist family, and what did your family think, or what do they think now when you are this channeling rock star traveling around?
They're supportive of the work. I don't really know what they think of it. My mother, I think, and there's only my mother and my brother in my immediate family. My mother, I think, is perplexed by the whole thing. On one level, she's, sort of confused because it means if I am this man that does this work, I'm not who she thought she raised. And I understand that. The very first time I had a book launch, she came. And I told my story about how this all happened, and she was sitting there in the first row, and I felt kind of badly for her because she looked rather lost, like, who is this person?
Right.
Because it wasn't a part of my life that she'd necessarily been very privy to. They knew I did healing work, and they knew I had these interests. And my brother, and it was very interesting, he's a very successful man, and he said to me that he had always been somewhat competitive with me, but he's not anymore because he can't compete with a prophet. And I thought that was very sweet of him and kind of funny. And so I've gotten no pushback from either of them, and I'm grateful for that. Nothing but support.
Yeah, and what about your friends? Did you find that you got a lot of new friends since you started this? Some more, you say you're not woo-woo, but maybe you've got some woo-woo friends now, or what's changed there?
It's changed a lot. I have a good support system of people that work in comparable ways, and I find that very helpful. I think going it alone in this stuff is tricky, and so when I get information and I want to run it past somebody I respect, I do. I have a lot of friends that have been with me for a very long time, and they accept this as part of who I am. Yeah. And then I think that there are other people that don't know what to do with it. I mean, I was, when I was younger, a hard-drinking, Billy Idol, bottle blonde, playwright, wow. Chain smoking, and this is a very different way of being in the world that I've aligned myself to. So I understand why that's been challenging for some people. I'm really not that much different in a lot of ways. I suppose some people think that I'm, some sort of floaty guy, and I'm not. I'm the guy that shows up for this work and sits in the chair and hope the reception's clear.
Right.
So that whoever wants to come through me can come through accurately. That's really my job. And although I do the psychic or empathic work, and I have a very healthy practice doing that, my work as a channel in many ways is as the transcriptionist almost. I mean, I'm a spoken channel. I hear, I repeat what I hear. Now somebody else types it up, which I'm just thrilled about.
Oh, yeah.
But that's really my job, is to sit there and repeat everything that I'm being told as it is given to me.
Yeah, it's so amazing, and I've been in your workshop. I think it was a 2-day workshop up here in Los Angeles, and the guides teach the class. So, I mean, how different from when you were a professor? You had to prepare everything and grade and stuff, and now you just show up and the guides will teach the class. You don't have to really prepare anything.
There was a point in my college teaching, maybe, 5 years before I left, or maybe a little more, when I realized I didn't want to look at my notes anymore. I just couldn't lecture notes. And it all began to be about sort of surfing the energy and letting the information come. And in retrospect, I was being prepared to get a bit more out of the way, unless it actually thought should be said. But every time I show up and I do a group or a sitting for a book. I really am diving off a diving board and hoping that there's water in the pool. I mean, they've always been there, but I really don't know what I'm going to say. I have no clue, and there can be, a few hundred people there expecting to hear something.
Right.
So, the agreement that I have with the guides is if I show up, they're going to show up, and I think they know that if I showed up and they didn't, we'd have a hard time going forward.
That's for sure.
So
the guides come through. Now, do you have any, because we've all got guardian angels, and do any angels come into you or anybody else, or just really the guides?
The guides that I work with are there when I'm doing my work, and I trust them. I have a hunch that when there's something that they can't address, they go get the information elsewhere. That I do experience, but when I'm reading people in my practice, I'm actually hearing them. So I operate kind of as a radio. Mm-hmm. So when I'm channeling, I'm playing the broadcast of the stage so that my guides play on and they work through me. Mm-hmm. If I would read through you, I would tune into you, and I would essentially become you or be playing you in order to hear you clairaudiently or telepathically, whatever you want to call it, and feel you, and then the people that you ask about. So, that's really how I work and how my system seems to have aligned itself at this time. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah,
yes. Well, what I feel about this is that they're delivering a teaching that's very distinct and seems to have a whole chronology and build towards it.
Right.
And they're keeping that pure. So I understand it from that reason. I do feel that whoever the guides are that are writing the book are supporting the readers, because people keep reporting them and these experiences with them. And the guides have said that, in the texts and in the workshops we sponsor those who are working with our teachings. But in terms of delivering the teaching, they seem to be doing it in a very specific way.
Mm-hmm. And to get back about when you said you hear the other person, so when I was in your workshop, I came up, because you'll call people up, and I came up, and you started repeating what I had been saying in my head about my work, and as a matchmaker, some clients, I was very frustrated, and you said exactly what I say to myself in my head. It was unreal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I'm working that way, I'm operating essentially as you. I mean, we're not all different. We're really all one being, and my ability to step in, to me, just goes to show us that we're not just our bodies, and we really all are connected. So that was you telling me that stuff. It wasn't my fishing.
Right, yeah. It was, and then this was interesting, because you don't know this part, but so you were pulling off, you said, can I come towards you? I feel something at your throat. And then you pulled some stuff, and you stood way back, and then I felt cold air rushing off me. And then somebody, when I sat down and we went to lunch or something, they said, "Oh, I saw some dark energy coming off of you, some black or whatever." So then I started having I could feel something coming in my crown chakra. I was paralyzed. I was really scared, and I've been trying to channel. So I thought, "Oh, something's coming in. I'm going to channel." I was laying in bed. But it felt very scary, and I'm like, please get out. I called Archangel Michael, please. And when I went to my healer teacher, who's very advanced, and she says, well, you've got, I had 10 lower vibrational entities attached to me. Mm-hmm. And they were wound all in, and my solar plexus was hard. I was having digestive issues. My arm hurt. I felt them come in. And I must have picked it up. I was doing a lot of different stuff at that time, writing my book. The Buddha made me do it. So that was so interesting that you felt that there was something at my throat, and she said there was, and that the energy, the black stuff came off, and she removed them, and then I felt they were gone. But the whole thing was just, and I wrote about it in the book and stuff, but it was just unreal. Yeah, it was. So anyway, if you guys ever get a chance to go to one of Paul's workshops, you've got to do that. So just thought I'd share. And, all right, so, the guides actually attune us through these books, too. People report feeling vibrations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the books operate on two levels. They're the words on the page, which provide the intellectual context, so you understand at a level of the self what's going on. But the real books, the guides say, are are the frequency that informs them. So the frequency is working with the reader in a lot of ways. It's sort of a collaborative exchange of energy. So it's not uncommon for people to have these sort of palpable experiences of vibration, similar to what people have in the workshops while they're reading the books. So the books are also the attunements. So you don't need to be with me in order for that to happen. The language of the books and the guides themselves seem to be supporting the readers in moving to this other level of alignment or agreement with the energy that they work with.
Yeah, I love that. There's a section, it's on, page 255 about the physical body. I love this because so many of us in our society, we're always worried about, are we thin enough? What are people thinking of us? Am I getting wrinkles? And it says, everyone who has ever witnessed you in a physical form has agreed to you, and your body, in fact, holds the vibration of how you were witnessed or how you perceived yourself as being witnessed by others. So I love the affirmation after that in that chapter that releases the memory of how we have been perceived by others and how we believed ourselves to be perceived by them throughout time. So that was powerful because, gosh, I mean, that's what all I see, and especially in my business in matchmaking, people trying to stay so youthful and attract someone and getting a lot of plastic surgery or not feeling good enough. And I just love that, raising the vibration and knowing that we're not our body.
And the guides are also saying that the body is the expression of the divine too. And so we're not excluding that. Mm-hmm. But the realization of that, the knowing of that is where they're trying to take us. They say, essentially they say it's easier for us to say that God is in the sky or in the trees than in our own flesh. You understand? So this idea that God is in the clouds and we're in the mud, which we've had for a very long time, has to be transformed if we're going to transform the world we live in. And they say, God is in the clouds and in the mud and in every cell of your body as well. They say the divine is in everything, everything that we can see, all is holy. That's what they teach. And that includes the wrinkles and the extra skin and all of those things that we might prefer not be there.
I know, yeah, exactly. And that we have to love it because, if I gain a little weight or a woman does and we're like, oh, my stomach or my thighs, and then we're hating ourselves, but we've got to, then if something's wrong, like we have a cancer scare or something, then we're like, oh, no, I don't care. I love my body. You want to love your body because we need this vehicle to be healthy, to get around, no matter what it looks like. So absolutely. And you were on, so this is very interesting for me as a matchmaker. You're on Nightline, and then now you're kind of known as the relationship psychic or something. And this is like great. So how did this kind of happen? You're kind of getting popular for that, right?
Yes and no. I've always done that work in my practice. I mean, they call me a medium for the living. Mm-hmm. So if you're dating somebody and you're having issues in the relationship and you come to me, I can tune into you and see what's really going on with you and this person. But I can also tune into this person and find out where he or she is coming from and may begin to resemble him or her as I do so. Do you understand? So I'm really sort of not moderating, but I'm hearing all the different levels of the relationship that can be heard. The higher level, what I'm really learning here, what the fear is, where this problem stems from, which may not have anything to do with the relationship, but how somebody was raised. So Nightline had been following me around for a little while, and they had a whole bunch of footage, and they just decided, I think, out of time constraints to focus on the relationship work, and they dubbed me the love psychic.
Oh, yeah, the love psychic. The love...
And I went, oh, brother, this is Paul who can't get a second date. Now I'm the love. That's funny. The irony wasn't lost on me. But I enjoyed that, and I actually enjoyed very much that part of my practice because it's very immediate, and it's not like trying to connect with somebody who's deceased. I really seem to be able to hear pretty much anybody that still has a body, and that includes people with locked-in syndrome or people in comas. I'm able to sort of step in and still hear. And that's a very interesting part of my work, that language. I've only worked with a few people who had family members who were in comas. And it was really interesting because I was getting information from the people in the hospital that was then being verified, by the family members. There was one woman who I read, and she thanked her mother for the jewels at her collar, and it turned out the mother had been sewing or bedazzling the nightgowns for her daughter. So there was a real sense of awareness of what was going on. But yeah, there was communication, and I read for somebody else who was furious about the coma. I could feel the guy, and I didn't know why he was so upset. He kept saying, I can't get back into my body. And it turned out, and I didn't know this until the second time I read for this family, that it was a medically induced coma, and the guy couldn't get back in. And then once he was there, I'm assuming he came back because he was just being treated. But it's interesting stuff. So I don't understand how it all works, nor do I necessarily understand how I do it.
We'll find out. And what about animals or pets? Does anyone ask you to tune in there?
Some frequency. I rarely hear them. There are animal communicators that do. I can feel them, and I can actually take on their disposition, and I know when they have an impacted, rear end or a gun, and I can feel all those things. It's very interesting for me, because I live in a male human body.
Yeah.
And I tune into women. I have a different experience of being in a body, depending on what wants to show itself. So I'm the only guy that I know that knows what it's like to feel pregnant. I had a hot flash when I was reading it. It was miserable. I read for a woman who bred horses. I've done this for a few people. And to step into a horse is really interesting because you get this experience of the musculature and the skeletal structure of the other animals. You feel your neck get long. You feel the power of all these things. But, animals, in my experience, and it's somewhat limited with them, are really often communicating in pictures. So there's different ways of accessing the information beyond language.
Yeah, because you're a dog lover, and I saw many interviews with your little dog on your lap. Now that little dog passed away, right?
She did, yeah. She did.
Do you have another one?
I did for a little while, and I was traveling so much that he bonded with his dog sitter. Oh. And they're happily in Italy together.
Wow.
My dog Moon is gallivanting across Europe with his sitter right now.
Oh, how fun.
And I'm waiting until I'm settled in one place quite long enough that I can actually care for one, unless, like Darla, my old dog would travel with me, and that was just great.
So, all right, the guides, I always go back to this. The guides, I try to hold this for myself. You can't be the light and hold anyone else in darkness. And we're in such chaos right now in the world, and people are scared, and it just seems like every day you turn on the news, there's another attack or something happening. And so we, of course, we're trying to defeat the terrorists, but we really, what are the guides teaching us about what we're supposed to? I mean, it just seems to be getting worse. So I'm sure people are asking you about this.
Well, they don't talk about current events in direct ways. 2 days before the last election, maybe 3 days, they delivered a lecture that's up online. It's on YouTube called Great Change. It was in a workshop in Richmond, Virginia. And they said, you're all used to, I don't know what it was, your choices being, am I going to have the milk or the cream? And what you're getting ready for is what happens when the table holding the milk and the cream gets turned over. How you've assumed your things should be, it's not going to be that way anymore. So they've been talking about this for a long time. And in the very first book, I Am the Word, they said that humanity is at a time of reckoning. And they said reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations. And everything that's been created in fear needs to be reclaimed or reknown in a higher way. So according to them, this is what we're dealing with now. Now, what do they say about politics? Very little. They talk a lot about collective agreements, how we're all ascribing to a lot of the crap we say we don't like. I mean, basically what the guides I work with say is that everything you see, you're in agreement to. That doesn't mean you made it happen. But because you see it, you're in relationship to it, which is vibrational agreement. And how you perceive whatever you see is informing that thing with the consciousness you bring to it. And so if you want to transform your world, you have to begin to transform the consciousness with which you attend to everything. The guides say, until we have a consciousness that can't hold the construct of war, we're going to keep perpetuating it because it's what we've always known.
Right.
So we expect to have war and we get war. Yeah. Now, I feel personally, and from what the guides have said, is that we're at a time of enormous change. Mm-hmm. And how we've known the world may be changing in radical ways, and, perhaps not in a way that's comfortable, but perhaps in a way that may support us in creating something new. What does that look like? I don't know. I know what the guides say. Mm-hmm. They're getting ready to channel the next book, calling it, when they talk about it, the Book of Freedom. And I know where they're going at this point, because it seems to be, I don't know where they're going. I'm assuming that I know where they're going based on what they've been talking about in workshops for the last 6 months, which is usually where they prepare me and all of us for what's coming next. But, this idea of freedom is becoming free of the historical structures or ways of self-identifying or collective identifying that we have inherited that are no longer working. Mm-hmm. And all of these belief systems, what beauty is, what success is, what equality is or inequality is, all of this stuff is deeply inherited stuff.
Yes.
And if you look around us, none of this stuff seems to be working very well. I think it's just miserable that people think that they have to go get surgery to be loved.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a heartbreaking thing. But if we live in a culture that would ascribe to that, we're never going to know ourselves as fully lovable, I guess. I'm not saying that I do. I struggle with all the same stuff most everybody else does. Mm-hmm. But the idea of transformation really does involve letting go of what we believed was going to be there all the time. Mm-hmm. Because the guides say we keep dining out on yesterday's leftovers again and again and again. We expect to have what we got, so we keep ordering it, when in fact we can transform or order something very, very different than we've had. So what do they say about the state of the world? I just said, I'll ask. They just said, if you wish, so I'll see if they want to say anything. We want to say two things. They're saying we want to say two things. You're all reliable. You're all reliable in your choices, to confirm the very things you don't want. And if you continue this, you will continue to claim what you say you don't want, what you say you don't want. Decide if you wish. Decide if you wish that the world you see before you, maybe on a higher way, may be known in a higher way, and called into being by your agreement, and called into being by your agreement to it. Your life you see is your expression. How you perceive the world. And how you perceive your world directs your attention to the values you hold, the values you hold. If the values you hold are no longer supporting you, try claiming something higher. The reliability on the old will not be possible. Will not be possible in many ways in the coming years, which simply means the times you stand and are requiring you to change are requiring you to change. It's possible. If you can perceive this as positive, you can have a positive expression of it. If you want to be frightened by it, that will be your agreement. Mm-hmm. And they're saying
period, yeah.
People don't know how to work. I whisper the words and repeat them, and that's just how it happens. So,
right, and that hasn't changed over the years that way. So
sometimes I work directly, but then I don't remember any of it pretty much, and it's challenging for me because I like to be able to reference it or interrogate it. And it's also just a very odd experience of. When I channel, I always like to say, it's like I'm climbing into the back seat of a car and I'm turning the steering wheel over to the guides. And when I don't, and then I'm just whispering and repeating. I'm sort of in my mind, I'm lying there reading a magazine in the back seat, and this whole thing happened. But when they're working through me directly, it's as if there's such a level of merger that I am them, and all I become is the sound of the voice. I mean, it's a little trippy. There's all this phenomenon that's been happening around the work. There are these attunements they do. I don't know if they were doing this a couple of years ago when you were there, when they stand in front of everybody and address them. They do that. My eyes, I've been told, now run a very pale blue when I do it. And I have dark hazel eyes, you know. I don't know how it happens, but the physical manifestation of this work is increasing as I continue to do it. And the energy that we're all experiencing through this seems to be, uplifting as well.
Yeah, and your face changed like a very like you're some other, like you're just really like smiling and like floaty. You were very very different.
Right.
Yeah, they were coming through, and you were just like this, just pure love when you came to each of us.
Yeah, that's what it feels when they work that way.
Right.
In my private life, I'm a curmudgeon, so that's that's what you get.
Do you read the books yourself too, or you're just getting all this from saying it so much and hearing it?
It's I'm lecturing every week in a live stream and 3 weekends a month. And the things that I can repeat are the things that I heard with regularity. And things that I couldn't even begin to try to translate that they've been talking about. I'm present for the work. I just read the Book of Truth. I read it when it was transcribed because it was the first time that somebody else did all the transcription of the book, and I was so happy. But I also got to read it, which meant that I didn't have to remember what I said at all. And I used to get really sick of the text because the transcription or the process of transcribing is laborious. You're really there. I mean, I did the first 4 books.
But didn't you have a lady like Victoria or someone on the other end that was doing it, or someone that was...
Victoria Nelson has been on the telephone.
Okay.
And she's been listening, because I can't channel without an active listener.
Oh, I see. Okay, but you were typing, but she was just listening to it. I see.
She took her own notes on the themes because she's interested and she's a student of the work. But even for the Book of Truth, Victoria wasn't there for a good third of it because the guides just decided to dictate a huge chunk of the book in front of students. So that pages of the new book was done at the Esalen Institute during workshops. So, and I'm doing a 5-day retreat in Boone, North Carolina in August, and my hunch is they're going to do a big chunk of the next book because real opportunity. And every time they get a whole length of time with people, I really have experienced them really unpacking new material and new teachings and seeing it through. So I'm excited about that.
That's incredible. So just to touch on something that the guides were saying about the state of the world and everything, so what we look at, we experience, so a lot of people will say, like spiritual teachers will say, don't watch TV, don't watch the news, because that's going to, the vibration. And then another spiritual teacher said something very interesting the other day at a workshop I went to, and this was like, wow, I want to get you or the guides' input on this. So he said, Earth is a school, and yes, all these things are going on that's bad, people are getting murdered and this and that, but we don't try to change the school, because new souls are coming in that need these lessons and need this school. But what we should do is meditate and get our vibration up so high that we're not down in that muck and part of it.
I would say it differently, but I don't disagree some of what he said. I don't know if it's about new souls or not. I do believe that this is a school, but I also think it's extraordinarily arrogant for anybody to say what's good or what's not good in terms of somebody's evolution. I got into this stuff not because my life was so happy or rosy. I hit a real wall, and it was the most significant experience of my life, I think, that wall, because on the other side of it were things I never would have chosen or known. So I think that we're all here to learn through all this stuff. The guides don't talk about good and bad. They talk about high and low.
Okay.
And I think that there's something to be learned through any encounter. So there's this sort of new agey stuff that I get a little peeved about, which is sort of this idea that it's all supposed to be floaty and happy all the time. But you know what? People get sick. They lose their children. Things happen. We fall down the stairs. We lose the money. And you know what? We learn through all of this stuff as well. It's all opportunity to learn. Now, the idea that if I was so evolved, I wouldn't have created this ends up to be a blame system.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's healthy either. The new stuff, I've heard that so many times this week, and people keep asking me that. I don't recall. I think the guides have actually addressed it very directly in prior lectures, and I just don't remember at all what they said. But I think that there is such a thing as willful ignorance, and I'm wary of that too. You know what? If somebody's starving outside my front door, but I don't want to open the door and look at that, I can't be of any service whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So you know what? We are our brother's keepers. Like it or not, that's it. Mm-hmm. And to say, well, they created that, or that's not my reality, we're in a shared construct. Now, the one thing that I highly agree with, which is if we continue to lift our vibration, our frequency, we begin to claim a very different reality. Yes. But we're doing that in order to lift the entirety of the whole lot, not to ignore it and say, well, look at those poor people that are still having their low vibrational experience, right, which is a kind of spiritual arrogance that I think we need to be watchful for. Right. This idea that you can't be the light and hold another in darkness really is a level of responsibility to everything. And that includes, this is what the guides would say, because I objected to it when they were dictating the books. And I said, well, if there's a book on a table in Paris, you're saying that I have a relationship to that book. And they said, the moment you know that there's a book on a table in Paris, you do. Okay. Because your consciousness is now there and informing it with your perception or your feeling or whatever you want to call it. And so everything we see, we're engaging with. And if we don't want to look at it, we can't support it in its transformation to something higher. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. Yeah.
Well, I had written down this little part, it just ties right in, that they say on page 19, as we teach you in this text, we will work with the dismantling of structures that were created by man in order to lift man to the potential that she may hold as the creator of a new world.
Yeah, so, that's it.
Yeah.
That's their stuff.
Right.
So that's it. It's not just sort of feel-good stuff.
No.
It does feel good once you move through some of the stuff that gets in the way. Mm-hmm. But, I think that they have bigger fish to fry. And it really is the creation of a new world, and that's through us, not in spite of us.
Reading this changes your frequency and vibration, and they're like doing work through these books on you, kind of.
Well, it's not like it's a tanning bed, and like you go in there and you come out looking better. Mm-hmm. You have to engage with it as well, but the energy of the book is going to inform you. Mm-hmm. But there are certain things that they invite us to claim. Mm-hmm. And the painful truth that they invite us to work with, they say, are energetic attunements. And what they're doing is they're supporting our energetic fields to align to this sort of higher octave, that's what they call it, that they're supporting us in going towards. Mm-hmm. So,
and talking about energetic attunements, well, it's like when I was attuned to Reiki, which were you attuned to wasn't it a form of Reiki or something? And that attunement is what now I can channel my angel, with the automatic writing and stuff, and some things opened up that way, and I noticed it was after the energetic attunements that I'd had. So I'm an attunement fan. As many as attunements, it just feels great.
Yeah, I mean, I was attuned to an energy. It was an offshoot of Reiki. It was the very first one back in the early 90s. And it's a system that's no longer being taught, and it was very, very powerful. And it really did facilitate my opening in other ways. When you work with a Reiki teacher, my understanding is that they hold your hands and they attune you that way. And my guides work with language that is encoded. So what they say they're doing is, well, this is how they say it. They say, you're all radios. And what they're doing in these attunements is they're supporting the radios that we are in playing the higher stations that are already there. Our systems haven't sort of acclimated to it. So they're doing that through the language, and then the energy that they bring through, like Reiki, is usually very palpable for people. And I think that that's great, because I'm not very interested in people deferring to me. I don't want to be a spiritual teacher, and I'm not a guru, and I just want to show up and do my work. But if you start having your own experience of this stuff, that's helping you and supporting you and helping your life transform in a positive way, then you get to have your own authority here. Right. And I think that's what's really important, is not to be deferring to other people, but to move to your own true self.
How long did you do the energy work? When did you stop doing, or do you still do a little bit of it, or?
You know, the pull-outs that I do, and it sounds like I did one on you in a workshop, was something that I learned through that system. Oh. And that's the only thing that I do. I'll do pull-outs on people when I feel it, when I feel a block and the guides say, yes, it can be moved in that way. So I do that, and I do it by distance, and it's just as effective. But, you know, when I first started this stuff, I was a very adept student and a very disciplined student of that work. And I was seeing clients and volunteering places and doing all that. But I don't have the patience for hands-on work. I really don't. The system that I was doing to do the full treatment took a full 2 hours of the body. And I was pulling out energy by hand. And very often there was such a strong current that I would be standing on a step ladder above the client to hold all this stuff coming up. And my arm was like killing me. And I wanted, because I was teaching college, and I wanted a way to work energetically that didn't involve touch, and then that came through the person that I was studying with in those days, I stopped needing to do the hands-on work because my own work came through, and my own work was a completely different animal than what I had been taught. Guys are teaching their own thing. But do I think I was prepared for it in some ways through what I'd done prior? Absolutely. I think it was very helpful. It's just, hands-on stuff. I have dear friends that are wonderful hands-on healers, and that's their work, not my.
Yeah.
I still have a private practice, and I'm doing energy work in the practice. Okay. But I don't call myself a medical intuitive, and I'm not engaging at that level. So when I'm doing energy work with people, it's sort of to support their own opening or their own alignment.
So if someone wants to do a Skype session with you, can you also help them with the opening through the Skype? Like, do you help them open up more intuitively, or?
Well, normally, it's been known to happen, but it depends on what somebody needs. Because somebody calls me and says, I want to open up intuitively. Yeah. And I go, well, that's fine. But what I'm really getting is they've got all this unresolved junk with their mother. And that's really what's stopping them from accessing their own knowing. Right. I would want to go to work on the mother stuff. Okay. So the idea of the abilities, sort of being glamorized or sought after, for me, this stuff happened in service to other people. It didn't happen because I wanted to open up to be a channel. Right. Unless I did, or I agreed to it prior to birth, which is what I've heard. But it happened out of a sense of need. And I think that people can open up, and I can support people in that in some ways if that's really what's necessary. Right. But I think that the ideal, before people start wanting to open up to channel, perhaps the ideal is to learn how to listen to their true selves, or their own intuitive self. Right. So they're not looking out themselves, more for answers.
Yeah, it's all an inside job, absolutely. And as a matchmaker, I see that people are looking outside themselves for the answer. If I can get that good-looking girl or that rich guy, or he's this, but it's starting here in your frequency, vibration, and loving yourself. Exactly. So that's a good place to end. Self-love. Paul, thank you. I love you, and I love everybody watching. And thank you so much. It was so great to see you again. And everybody, the Book of Truth. Get it. Bye.